Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dewey Norwood out in Charlotte. We're going to give it just a moment or so as we get all of our scholars and partners on the lines with us for today for our discussion on mind over money skills, credit management. Whether you're building credit, whether you're looking to establish it, you are in the right place for our discussion for today. So appreciative of so many of you all joining us here for today's conversation. The next slide, I think, has just some of my general information on it. So Dewey Norwood, very fortunate to work for Wells Fargo in external engagement, 23 years for me. This is my Jordan year. Everybody's heard me say that all year long, year 23. So excited about what we're getting done from that perspective, and certainly happy to be on with everyone here throughout the course of today's discussion. We've got some great content as we continue on that we'll be focusing in on. Thumbnail sketch, you all know about Wells Fargo. Diversified financial services provider, over $1.9 trillion in assets. 1 in 3 households in the US has a banking relationship with our institution in some way, shape, or form. That equates to 69 million customers globally. So significant numbers there, and really appreciative to all of the Wells Fargo customers who are joining and or listening to the playback of today's segment. And we're really excited, team, about the content that we're going to be sharing. As we continue on with things here, want to share some exciting news. We are just days away. You all are one of the first groups to hear about this. We are just days away from launching a brand new 2.0 version of the Student Impact Scholarship. Many of you all on the lines virtually may be familiar with the Student Impact Scholarship. Feel free to drop into the chat if you all heard about that wonderful program last year. Well, we're bringing it back with $1 million that we're providing again for the program this year. A little nuanced. For this year's program, we're focusing exclusively on HBCUs, and we're focusing exclusively on seniors. So seniors, make some noise. We are really excited to be providing you all with support of up to $5,000 as a part of this program to help you get through and complete college successfully. So very, very excited about that. Stay tuned and be sure to visit the collegesteps.wf.com website for more details. We're launching this thing the 1st of November, so stand by for more details on this program, and please share it with all of your partners so they can be aware of the information out there as well. All right, I think that we are now down to the next item here for us, and I think this is for me handing the reins off. So Bonnie, that's lightning speed for me kind of getting through my top items, but I wanted to give you a moment to say hello to everyone. And as we have folks joining, I wanted to give you some metrics, Bonnie. We've once again done a really, really great job knocking at the door of about 200 registrants here right at kickoff. Also have great representation today from the University of Nebraska at Omaha. We've also got Benedict College connecting in today. We've got Fisk in the house. We've got North Carolina A&T. So a lot of our HBCUs are making their way to the virtual discussion. And then our top registrants come from the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, APIA Scholars, and also Point Foundation for registrations from our higher education partners. So Bonnie, it's midterm season, students are busy, and yet they're still coming to hang out with us. So I want to thank you for your leadership, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to share your opening comments and introduce our wonderful distinguished panel. So ladies and gentlemen, this is Bonnie Wallace, a great partner of ours and a great partner in the financial education space. Bonnie, great to have you on today.
Thank you, Dewey. Appreciate the warm introduction.
You're welcome.
And I think I've met a lot of this audience before, but just as a reminder, I am with Wells Fargo's Financial Health Philanthropy Group. We're part of the Social Impact and Sustainability team, and we focus on improving the financial health of people across the country through a variety of different relationships. One of the relationships that we have is with the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development. It's an incredible organization with that operates with the mission of closing the racial wealth gap and improving the financial health of students attending HBCUs. And I'm very pleased that we have some of the student ambassadors from their Student Ambassador peer-to-peer financial education program with us today. And I'd like to introduce them and actually have them introduce themselves. So why don't we start with Lanicia?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lanicia Turner. I am a senior majoring in finance with a concentration in risk management and insurance, hailing from the Southern University in Agricultural and Mechanical College. And it's very nice to be here today. I'm really excited for today's presentation.
Welcome. And we've got Desiree, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am Desiree Farrell, a senior accounting and finance major at Jackson State University, and I'm excited to be here with you all.
Thank you, Desiree. And Jamal?
Hey, everybody. My name is Jamal Jude, and I'm a senior finance major at Alabama A&M University. And I'm excited to be here and help you guys and hope you guys learned something today.
Well, I've got to go back to do all the introductions because one of the most exciting things I learned about our speakers today is what their plans are after college. So Jamal, we're going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to start with you first.
Well, I'm actually, shout out to TMCL, but I'm actually going to be a global finance and business management analyst in New York by way of TMCF as well. So that's what I plan to do after college. And I graduate this December, so I'm excited. 7 more weeks, y'all.
Who are you going to work for?
JP Morgan Chase Bank.
Incredible. And Desiree, what are your plans for after college?
I will be entering Chevron's financial development program as a financial analyst. So I'm excited about that new journey after graduation.
It's awesome. And Lanicia?
Well, I had the opportunity to be offered a job to work with Comcast at their regional office in Atlanta, Georgia, working with their strategic operations and accelerated rotations program. And I'm super excited to get started once I graduate.
I am excited for all three of you. And I want to also encourage our audience today. You can find our speakers on LinkedIn. So encourage you to connect with them. They would be great resources for you, both from your kind of personal finance questions you may have, but also might be a good resource to find out how do they do it? You know, how do they secure jobs so early in advance of graduating? So they really have some secret sauce there. I'm not going to spend any more time with introductions. We're going to get right into the meat of this. I'm going to turn this over to our first speaker.
Thank you so much, Bonnie.
Who's up first? Is that Jamal?
Yes, it was. I thought I was interrupting somebody. That's why I was quiet. All right. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for introducing us as well. And I'm an SFE and PD ambassador, and that is the Society of Financial Education and Professional Development. I'm passionate about helping people. And I want to tell you a little bit about SFE and PD. They are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to enhance the financial and economic literacy of individuals and households in the United States and promote professional development at the early stages of career development. They've helped me so much in my professional career with so many different opportunities. They were established in 1998. SFE and PD is one of the first educational nonprofits to deliver customized financial literacy programs and professional development opportunities for financial educators nationwide. Since 2001, SFE and PD has presented personal financial management seminars to more than 425,000 individuals, including 350,000 students at 90 colleges and universities, primarily at HBCUs, or historically Black colleges and universities. All right, let's go on to the first slide. All right, thank you so much. Now, I would like to start off with giving you a little incentive and why it's important to get your college education, right? Look at this chart. This chart tells you the difference between people who have high school diplomas, associate's degrees, and a bachelor's degree. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that's like, you know what, I can make some money if I'm an entrepreneur, but guess what? It's good to have a 9-to-5. And if you like to do entrepreneurship, do that on the side, but make sure you have some secure income. But with the high school diploma, on average, that person makes about $38,792 per year, right? And look at the associate degree column where that's about $46,124, which is a difference between what the high school diploma has as well. Now, if you go out and got your bachelor's degree, you have on average, you'll be making around $64,896. Now, this is just an average. This is not exact. It depends on what actual area you're going to go in, but you have the ability to make a lot more money. And this could equals millions of dollars over years' time, as you can see in the difference. Next slide, please. All right, now we want to speak a little bit about the differences between financial literacy and financial illiteracy. Now, while you're in school, it's important that you not only get knowledge in your field of study, but I would suggest also seek opportunities to increase your financial literacy, because it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep, right? The chart shows the difference of the experience of people who are financial illiterate and financial literate, right? Let's talk about some of the key financial literacy concepts you should be aware of, right? Someone who is financial literate, right? They have delayed gratification or long view of life. Someone who is financial literate may have increased savings and investments, limited consumer debt, diversified investments, real estate and financial assets, sound mortgage and auto loan decisions, accumulation of retirement savings, and higher wealth accumulation. So it's important for you to be financially literate so you can also make those investments and keep your money. Now, here's a few examples of someone who is financially illiterate. Someone who is impatient, needs current gratification, limited savings, limited or no investments, casual spending, high debt loads, low retirement savings, poor loans, or limited wealth. These are characteristics of a person who's financially illiterate, and I promise you, you would much rather have financial literacy because you'll end up enjoying your life much more if you can do that. Next slide, please. All right, now just want to talk a little bit about credit management, this is what we're going to focus on in this seminar. We want to empower you to successfully and confidently learn how to effectively manage your money and take control of your current financial condition. Now we're going to teach you some key management concepts, and we're going to enhance your knowledge about credit and student loan debt management. We're also going to introduce you to some skills that can result in a lifetime healthy financial decision-making. Next slide, please. Of course, I just went over the overview. In this lesson, of course, you're going to learn how to manage your credit, your debt, and identify actions that could damage your credit. Next slide, please. Now, credit is important. Credit gives you the ability to acquire goods and services. I'm sure you guys know how important credit is, so I won't say too much on this slide, but we can go to the next one. And we're going to build and show you exactly how important and how you can maintain your credit and manage it. Now, how many people have heard of the 3 C's? If you have, type in the chat. Type yes or no. If you haven't heard of it, it's okay if you haven't. All right, we'll go ahead and start with the first of the 3 C's. Capacity. Capacity helps financial institutions determine the risk associated with lending money to you by researching how much money you make each month and how long you've been on your job. Your character. This represents your future ability to meet your payment obligations, right? And your collateral. Do you have assets to secure the loan beyond your capacity to pay it off? The 3 C's are very important, so make sure you guys remember this part. Now, next slide. All right, now, I know we're not in school right now, but I'm gonna give y'all a few definitions because it's important. This is really, really important for you guys to understand what these credit definitions are so you know what you have. Now, we'll start first with secured credit. If you know what secured credit is, type in the chat, type yes, no. I just want to engage you guys to see, who are already kind of understanding of this material. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of no's. Seeing some yeses. All right, let's go and get into it. The secured credit is secured by collateral such as a bank account or an asset. Now, unsecured credit is exactly the opposite of secured credit. You don't need any pledge to any collateral or your only thing you need is your signature, and that's sufficient, right? Now, installment credit. How many people know what installment credit is? Type yes in the chat if you know what installment credit is. Yes, no. Okay, I'm seeing a couple more. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of no's. Okay, that's good. That's okay. That's what we're here for, to help you learn. Now, installment credit is a loan that is repaid over time with a set number of scheduled payments. An example of an installment loan is a car loan or mortgage, something like that. You probably heard of car loan mortgage, but in this definition, we want to let you know exactly what these things are. So how many of you guys have heard of revolving credit? Okay, if you haven't, revolving credit is a type of credit that can be used repeatedly up to a certain limit as long as accounts are open and payments are made on time. With revolving credit, the amount of available credit, the balance, and the minimum payment goes up and down depending on the purchases. Now, credit lines, how many people have you heard? If you heard of credit lines, you probably have, but that's basically a pool of money available for borrowing, also known as a line of credit. That's the official definition of it. And the different types of credit lines are credit cards, home equity lines of credit, business lines of credit for working capital for small businesses. Now, I'm sure you guys have probably heard of alternative credit, but if you haven't heard this exact term, I would say make sure you stay away from alternative credit. The term alternative or non-traditional credit refers to check cashing, payday lenders. These loans are super expensive. They can end up getting you into a sticky situation, so you might want to stay away from those. But just want to give you the different definitions of credit. Let's go on to the next slide so we can kind of go over the pros and cons of credit. Now, these are some of the pros and cons of credit. Of course, you know that having credit, it's convenient. You cover emergencies, you're able to build assets, you're able to build future credit. A lot of people don't realize that without you having credit, you could actually be not able to have that job or, rent that house or rent that car. Or, I was in a situation before where, I had a wreck and I didn't have any credit and I couldn't even rent a car to move forward. So I had to, just call people and had to get them to come and pick me up to, go where I was trying to go, or I had to Uber, right? And so I ended up spending a lot more money. So these are some of the pros and cons of having credit. Some of the cons are when you do have credit is you can be tempted to excessively spend. And, we're going to go over the limits that you should stay within in our future slides. But next slide, please. Now, here are some of the economic benefits. I kind of went over there. I won't go over too much, but you get lower interest rates, and of course you get availability of credit. Next slide, please. Now, here are some of the economic disadvantages, which I kind of alluded to that when I started talking about the pros and cons, but of course you have higher interest rates. You're going to spend a lot more money over time. You have limited sources of credit, limited employment opportunities, higher insurance premiums. And as you can see, it could be the difference between you getting that job or not getting that job, because they check your credit too, because if you're showing signs that you're not responsible, this could really hurt you. So next slide, please. Now, this is what we call a debt tracker. The debt tracker is actually an efficient way to keep track of your debt obligations. How many people will just spend money and never write anything down? If you just spend your money and you never write it down, right? Type yes in the chat. Because I've been there, I've done that. I just spend it and keep going until I have nothing left, right? So in order to keep from doing that, use this debt tracker. It allows you to stay out of financial trouble. You can manage surprises when they happen. It also allows you to properly manage your cash better. As you can see, in these different sections, you see item bought, purchased, your amount owed, your payment amount, your interest rate, your term of loan, your total interest paid, and your total cost of loan. Pay attention to these because this can be the difference between you saving money and having it available, or you being able to running out of money and then you're all in the red and then you're not having anything left over to do the things that you really want to do, like go on that vacation or go and buy that new car or go and do whatever the things you enjoy doing. Next slide, please. All right. How many people know about financial ratios or have ever used them? If you have used them, type in the chat, yes, no, or say I never heard of them, never even knew these exist. I'm gonna be honest. Before I went back to school, I did not know any of these exist. And once I joined the SFE and PD, they taught me all about this. And your debt to assets is very important. These are your liabilities divided by your assets. If you know what, do you guys know what liabilities are? You know about assets? Well, basically your liabilities is basically your debt, right? Your assets, and the higher the percentage, the greater level of risk you have on this limit once you divide your liabilities divided by your assets. Now, let's go to debt to limit. To find out what your debt to limit is, you divide your outstanding credit card balance by your credit card limit. Now, on this debt to limit ratio, your outstanding credit card balance, basically, this is kind of showing you exactly how you can find out on your debt to limit where you're at 30%. You want to try to stay below 30%. As you can see on the second one, it's 450 between the 1,000. You don't want to go above 30%. So this person has actually got too much debt to limit ratio. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, how much debt is too much debt? Now, I want you guys to get out your phone. We can actually do this. So I want to give you some financial tools that can help you stay within your debt limits, right? If you got Apple phone, I got an Apple phone, right? I don't know if you can see my screen or not, but go to your Apple store and type in SFE and PD, or go to your Google Play Store, type in SFE and PD. We have an app for this. Now, you can go down and you can type in your different expenses and what you have coming in, and that's how you can find out what your debt limit ratios are, what your DTI is. You can find out all this information. All right, next slide, please. All right, as you can see on here, you can see like if you have student loans, if you have a car loan, if you have a credit card, if you have other personal loans, you tally all of this up. Now, this is excluding your mortgage or your rent. So you might make sure you remember that this is excluding your mortgage or your rent. This is the money that you have left over to spend. You don't want to spend more than about 20% of that debt. If you have more than 20% debt after your mortgage, you are paying too much debt. You want to stay within that 20%. So if you go to the app, it'll actually help you type this in, and you can find out what your limits are. It's at the top, the debt to income ratio. I don't know if you probably can't see my screen, but we're gonna move forward. Make sure you download that app. All right, I'm gonna give y'all a few more definitions, and we're gonna move on to our next section to dive deeper into credit cards. So, how finance charges are calculated. The annual percentage rate. This is the cost of credit, right? How many of you guys know what the annual percentage rate, the periodic rate? Have you heard of any of these terms? Annual fee. If you have, type in the chat yes or no if you haven't heard of these terms. Well, make sure you pay attention before you get these credit cards. And Desiree is going to go over these credit cards for you. But basically, your annual percentage rate, this is the cost of credit expressed as a yearly rate, right? Your periodic rate, this is the interest rate used to figure the finance charge on your balance. Your annual fee is the amount you pay to your card holder, amount you pay to be a card holder, similar to a membership fee. Your grace period, this is the number of days you have to pay your bill. Finance charges, most lenders calculate finance charges using an average daily account balance. Now, Desiree is going to go more deep into these different types of credit cards. So I appreciate you guys listening so far. If you guys keep going, and I want you guys to learn more and more. Go ahead, Desiree, and teach them about those credit cards.
Thank you, Jamal. All right, so now we'll talk about the different types of credit cards. We can go to the next slide. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have bank cards, and these are issued by different banks, savings and loan associations, and credit unions. So Wells Fargo, for example, they issue credit cards. We also have charge cards, which are travel and entertainment cards. They generally have to be paid at the end of each month. So for example, when I was an intern with Deloitte, I received a charge card, and when we went on a business trip, I charged my flight and my meal expenses to that card, and I submitted an expense report. And once Deloitte reviewed it, they paid that card, the card balance. So that's an example of a charge card. Next slide, please. All right, so now we have retail credit cards, and these are issued by businesses such as department stores, gas companies, and airlines. And sometimes the credit is only limited to goods and services offered by that card issuer. So For example, Belk has two different cards. They have a Belk Rewards card, which you can only use in their department store, and you earn points, which equate to Belk bucks, and you can use that to take money off of your purchases. But they also have a Belk Rewards MasterCard, and with that, you can use it in store, and you also can use it at several other locations. And so with that, that's more attractive to consumers because you can earn points for your favorite department store, but you can also use it in various places. We also have secured credit cards, and these are credit cards that are secured by a deposit in an account held by the card issuer. And so what you do is the consumer pays the deposit equal to the credit line, so maybe $1,000, and then the issuer holds that deposit in case you default on your bill, on paying your bill. Also, we have infinity cards. Infinity cards are issued jointly by a lending institution and some other organizations, such as a charity, college, or alumni association. And what happens is when you use your infinity card, a percentage of that purchase goes to that charity, and it's paid by the bank, so it's no expense to you. And the reason why banks issue these different type of cards because it expands their market, it promotes goodwill, and it also is an opportunity for banks to cross-sell some of their products. All right, so can we go to the next slide, please? All right, so here we have a credit card payoff schedule. And so as you can see, principal is that maroon color and interest is that lavender color. So for example, with this scenario, if you only pay the minimum, which is $25, you're paying about $600 in interest, and it's going to take you longer to pay off that $1,500 in debt. But if you pay the minimum, which is $25 plus $10, which is $35, it takes you less time to pay it off, and now you're paying a little bit less, so you're paying around close to $370. But if you pay $100, which is $75 more than the minimum payment, you're only paying about $156 in interest. So overall, it's important that you pay more than the minimum, so you pay less interest. And like for me, for example, I like to pay immediately after using my credit card to go back to what Jamal said and take advantage of that grace period and avoid interest charges, and then also get my reward points for certain purchases. And this is just a great way to build your credit. And I recommend that you pay off majority that you owe on your credit cards. Next slide, please. So when you get these different type of loan agreements, whether it's an auto loan or credit cards or mortgage, it's important that you read the terms and conditions. And within the terms and conditions, you have the truth in lending disclosure statement. And it's required by federal law. And with that statement, they highlight the rate, the fees, and other important terms that you as the loan holder should know. Next slide, please. All right, so plan your financing. So prior to you planning to get any purchase, you should go to www.annualcreditreport.com, and with this, you get a free copy of your credit report once a year. And once you get that credit report, make sure you check for errors because that can impact your credit score. And you want to fix all of those errors before you apply for a loan. And also, before you apply for a loan, make sure your score is not below a 750 because you want to get the best interest rate possible. And that goes back to what Jamal was talking about. You know, your credit score does affect how much they're willing to give you and how high your interest rate is. And with this, you can shop around for your purchase before you purchase a car or home for financing and pre-approval, and this speeds up the process. So like for me, I was actually an authorized user my freshman year in college, but we recommend that you at least start building your credit your junior year in college or when you're employed. Next slide, please. So key questions to ask during a loan agreement. What is the specific loan payment? What are the principal and interest amounts? What is the interest rate or APR? Under which state law will disputes be resolved? These are very important questions to ask your lender, and they are required to answer these questions by law. And this also gives you an opportunity to give you more information to compare your different loans. And also, once you do that, you can meet your different financial conditions that you would like for that loan. Next slide, please. So, how to repair your credit? Well, first, by requesting your credit report. Again, you can go to the website on this slide to get your free copy. You should try to do this at least twice a year. And especially if you're going to make a large purchase like a home or a car, you want to do this at least 6 months before that purchase. And the three major credit reporting agencies is Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These agencies may charge up to $8, but by federal law, they cannot charge more than $13. And once you do that, you can go to their website. If something is incorrect, you can dispute it and contact that particular bureau. And you can do it online, through phone, through fax, and you just need to have a rationale why you think this charge is incorrect. Next slide, please. So again, repairing your credit, look for that error. And a lot of times, and when I say that, look for old information, that is information that should no longer be on your credit report. So credit information that's older than 7.5 years should be off of your credit report. Bankruptcy information older than 10 years should be off your credit report. Next slide, please. How to repair your credit? Contact those lenders. A lot of times once you contact and let them know, they establish payment plans where you can pay consistently and on time, and then use those tax refunds or recently stimulus to pay your outstanding debt. And why this is important is because over 6 months of non-payment, that results in a period that's called a charge-off. And that's basically when the lender loses hope that you will pay your bill. So with that, they send that to a collection agency. And what the collection agency tries to do, they try to collect that debt. And a lot of times with collection agencies, you can set up payment plans, or you can settle the debt. And with that, you basically have an agreement, a written agreement, before you make any payments that they will settle for you to pay a less amount. So say, for example, if you owe 1,000 and you say, I can't pay 1,000, but I can pay you 800, some collection agencies will allow that. Next slide, please. Ways to stop your cash flow leaks. Leave your credit cards at home. Learn to say no. Take advantage of all taxable deductions. Comparison shop. You know, a lot of times I like to use resources like Retail Me Not and Groupon when I shop online, because I can always find some type of coupon that will reduce the cost of my purchase. And also, every time I swipe my card, I get notifications on the charges. So one that helps me from that helps me to recognize if there's any fraud going on, if I had something that I know I didn't swipe my card for. And also it helps me to be more conscious of my spending habits. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So how to maintain or how to improve your credit? Again, do that wants versus needs. Keep a low balance. You don't want to go over more than 30% of your credit limit. Decline any credit card limit increases. You know, just making sure that you stay aware, just like Jamal mentioned, that debt tracker. Use different resources that's given to you that is online or that your banking institution or your lending institution provides you to stay on top and improve your credit. Thank you so much, and I will turn it over to Lanicia.
Thank you, Desiree. So you may be wondering, what exactly is your score? Your credit score, which is sometimes referred to as a credit rating or a Fair Isaac Corporation score, known as your FICO score. This is really a number that helps lenders determine how much of a credit risk you may be. Your credit score is based on the information in your credit report. Next slide, please. So your credit scores fall into various ranges. For example, your excellent credit is 781 to 850. Your good credit is 661 to 780. And your fair credit is 601 to 660. Your poor credit is 501 to 600, and bad credit is anything below 500. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit how the credit scoring process works. It starts with your input, which is your credit report. Then your process, which is the credit or your loan application. And then your output, which is your credit score. Next slide, please. So what factors influence your FICO credit score? Well, it's important to learn how the score is calculated so you can improve your score if necessary to obtain credit. Your payment history is the largest percentage of your credit score. That is why it's so important to pay your bills on time. If you do not have a history of late payments, your score just may be a little higher. Also, if your credit card balance is close to the limit, or if you have just begun to use credit, your score may be lower. Next slide, please. So who uses your credit score? Well, your credit score may be used by mortgage lenders, automobile finance companies, banks and other financial institutions, potential employers, car insurance companies, landlords, or anyone who has a need to understand how you handle credit. Next slide, please. So where do credit bureaus get their information? Credit bureaus gather information from creditors such as banks, credit card companies, and car financing companies. They also collect information from public records such as courts and property records. Also, some lenders tend to provide their information at the beginning of the month, others in the middle, and some at the end. This means that not only will the information change on different days at different bureaus, but the information at each bureau may not match because it was received at different times. Next slide, please. So here are some ways on how you can improve your credit score. One, you should reduce your outstanding debt, pay loans consistently and on time, pay off debt rather than moving it around, and apply for credit only when you need it. So you should definitely charge less than the maximum credit limit on credit cards and keep your balances low. As it was stated before, anything lower than 30%. And do not shop excessively for credit. Another way to improve credit is to be added as an authorized user on your parent's credit card. So this is a great way to build your credit if your parents have a history of paying their bills on time and managing their credit responsibly. However, be careful because if your parents have poor credit history and don't manage their credit responsibly, that can negatively affect your score. So this ends the presentation on credit management, and we can move on to the Q&A portion of the webinar.
Thank you, Lanicia and Desiree and Jamal. I'd like to introduce someone who also is from the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development, and that is Mr. Robert Kinzer. Mr. Kinzer, can you say hello and give us a little bit of a self-introduction?
Hello, wonderful people out there in virtual land. I'm Robert P. Kinzer. I'm the financial educator for the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development. Say that 5 times real quick. And we're so thankful, I'm so great that we went through this presentation. It was a lot of information packed in such a little bit of time. So that's why we have this actually opening time for question and answers. My background is I'm retired from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, 30 years as a senior community affairs officer, and I was a senior financial analyst. So I used to go around liquidating banks around the country. And before that, I was a stockbroker and investment advisor. And before that, before my body clock expired, I played professional basketball. But now I'm in the world of finance. So I'm here to answer any questions that anybody had. We've been having a lot of people putting questions in the Q&A, and I've been trying to respond to those. Some great questions out there. But I just like to start with if anybody have any questions they want to chime in. But let me just answer one question that is asked all the time. Should we be using debit or should I choose credit when you're in a store? And let me tell you, you should always select credit. The reason why is if you select debit, there's so much easier ways for people to create fraud, and it takes a lot more time for them to research it. So when you select debit, it comes out immediately, and sometimes it takes a bank 30, 60 to 90 days to research it and refund your money. And it's easy for some people to steal your PIN number while you're trying to put it in, because watching. But with a credit card, it usually takes, on average, or it could be long, but on average, it's about 3 days for them to restore your funds. Also, with a credit card, it's great because if you want to return the item and it's defective or something, you do that and they'll immediately recredit your account. And nowadays, the other good thing about having a credit card, selecting credit, because you're building credit. You do not build credit using your debit card. So it's important that you do select credit. And then there's a fourth one, which is nowadays the cash rewards, because a lot of credit cards give cash back. So that's one of the most frequently asked questions. We have somebody here in the chat. Is this, let me hear. Oh, okay, that's Bonnie. Okay.
Yeah. So, Mr. Kinzer, I have a question for you, though. So, a clarification. Are you talking about, you can use your debit card but choose credit?
That's exactly what I mean. When you have a debit card and you have the choice when you go in the store and they say credit or debit, you should always choose credit. And the theory was, in the past, if you choose credit, it used to take 3 days for it to take the money out of your account. So people used to say, oh, I couldn't balance my checkbook because it was like, and then people were using what they call float. But now it's recognized and taken out of your account the next day. So that's not even the issue anymore. And it's so much more safer and for protection wise for credit. And like I told you, the other benefit, you're building credit when you select credit.
Wonderful, thank you. So I put some information into the chat, but I want to try and stump Mr. Kinzer here. So
come on with it.
What he didn't tell you is that he's a comedian in retirement.
No, I just have to be funny sometimes. That's above my comedian grade. No, go ahead.
Well, let's see if we can stump him. Let's see your toughest questions. We've got some that were submitted beforehand. You want to take another one from that list?
Yeah, this is another big. Oh, go ahead.
Faith C had a question. Do you have to use credit for the big things like cars and houses, or can you use cash? And can you not use credit at all?
That's to me?
Yeah. So so I can answer this. You don't always have to use credit, but you can use cash if you have cash to purchase homes and cars. It's just a typical consumer does not have that amount of cash on them at the time. But I would recommend using credit because car loans and mortgages are great ways to build credit, and they're on your credit history for a while. So I would definitely recommend it. And credit, I know it can be scary because if used not properly, if you don't use it properly, it can have a lot of long-term damaging effects. But if you know how to use it properly, it can work to your benefit.
And I like to piggyback on that, Desiree, because you're right. But this has been the thing with college students and credit cards. They'll put pizza, videos, everything on there. And I'm kind of leery, but I know, so let me tell you, it's a catch-22, okay, using the credit card. Because in the past, the theory is just use credit cards for large purchase items, for emergencies. your car broke down, the furnace doesn't work. Things like that, right? But now, a lot of students, like I said, they're using it to buy pizza, Wendy's, and that's how you can build up credit debt so fast. It's those little items, you all. But this is the catch 22. Because they're cash rewards points now, if you are disciplined and you pay it off monthly, so the new logic is, yeah, use it because you're building up and you're using cash rewards. Remember, cash rewards are tax-free. And that's why the philosophy has changed a little bit. But if you're not a person like Desiree said, if you're not disciplined, you're not responsible, no, you don't need to be using credit. And then the other little secret they say is, you know, when you go into like Walmarts and at the front, as soon as you walk in there, they have all the for sale items right there because they're trying to get rid of them, right? All the stuff that I like the Ruffles, potato chips. I ended up buying 3 bags because they're just sitting right there. When you go with credit card, you tend to spend more. When you go with cash, you spend only what you have. So that's the theory of using credit and cash. Anybody else? Come on with it, Bonnie. I'm ready for the question. Oh, let me ask you this. Let me share this. A lot of people don't know when the credit score is calculated. They think the credit score is calculated monthly, and it's not. That this the two-pronged how it's done. It's recorded. Like it depends on the lender, or I mean the retailer or the creditor who's sending information into the credit bureaus. And this is what people don't know. People think the credit bureaus are the ones calculating the score. No, they just collect the information. And FICO, Fair Isaac Corporation, I'm sure you heard of FICO. They are the ones who actually calculate the score. So the information is sent in to the 3 major credit bureaus, and more than that, by the way, people, because people think it's just those 3 major credit bureaus: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. But they are the major ones, and they usually send it in once a month. It could be the end of the month, or sometimes it could be 45 days. But normally your score is calculated when there is a request for your credit. That's normally when it is calculated. Then you got Credit Karma and Credit Sesame, and they're calculating, and their score may look different than a score from Experian or Equifax. And the question is, why? That's because they are calculating it with their algorithms. They usually come close within a 10-point percentage, because a lot of people ask me, oh, what about Credit Karma and Credit Sesame? Those are okay places, but remember, there's nothing free. They say it's free. You get your credit score, it's free, but they are marketing, because normally, I hope you see, you get a lot of responses when you use them for credit cards. They say, oh, your score is great. Now you can get 1 credit card, 2, 3, 4, 5 credit cards, right? And some theories are saying that they are also marketing your information out. So be careful using those other type of people who are calculating your score. And one last thing, Barney, reason why sometimes, like, it didn't used to be, if you saw the credit scores, right, the highest is 850 and the lowest is 300. And it didn't used to be that way. They used to have different ones, but they're all now sort of based on that same scale. But this is the difference. You can look at one major credit reporting agency and the score could be a little bit different than the other. This is why they are geographically positioned. Like one is in Chicago, one is in Atlanta, and they're pooling like information from about 3 million people, and they come up with a default rate, right? So they're looking at different swaths of people, 30, 60, 90-day delinquent, coming up with a delinquency score that determines the risk for you to a lender. So that's why some of the scores can look different, because people ask me, why the score is different than Equifax and then Experian? That's why, but they're normally usually close.
So I've got a question for you. So it looked like from the chat that we've got some folks on the phone that are really new to credit. What are some of the best ways to establish credit? How do they start to have some accounts on record so they can actually get a score?
Do one of the ambassadors want to answer that?
Well, I can go. Well, I actually started out not knowing anything about credit. And so I got myself into a situation where I was paying a lot higher interest rates. and a lot of things going on. So I didn't have any good credit. So I started with bad credit, right? But if you don't have any credit, I would start out with a secured credit card. Go to your local bank, get you a secured credit card, and start using it. You just use it on gas or something every month. Try to stay within that 30%. Don't try to spend more than 30% of whatever limit you got. Like, let's say for a personal example, I started with a secured credit card of about $250. So I set a goal that I was just going to get gas. I'm just going to get, little stuff that I want to eat every month. And I made sure I paid it off every single month. I didn't spend more than about $75 on that $250 limit. I gave the bank $250. They gave me the card, and it was a limit of $250. And so I started paying that every single month. I always paid it before the due date. And that helped me build my credit. I started with actually just looking at the my Credit Karma. But I found out Credit Karma score is a lot different from your FICO score, just like Mr. Kinzer was mentioning. Your Credit Karma score is really just a Vantage score, which is a different algorithm that they use. And your FICO score is mostly what the lenders use. But I would say, to answer your question, start out with a secured credit card. If you can manage yourself and make sure you stay within that 30% limit, do that, and then move forward from there.
Good. Does that answer your question, Bonnie?
Sure did. It did, Mr. Kinzer. Thank you. And I've got one that came into the Q&A, which I think is a good question. So the question here is, my credit score is kind of stuck between 730 and 750. I can't get beyond that. I've got a credit card, I've got 2 store cards, and I've got I think it said they had an auto payment or an auto loan. What can I do to boost my credit beyond that? Should I take out more credit cards?
One of the ambassadors want to answer that? Okay, I'll answer it for you. So the interesting thing about credit, right? You have to go in debt to actually get credit. But there's a such thing as good credit and bad credit. But so remember that, like, a mortgage or a student loan, that's good debt. But yes, Bonnie, if you're trying to build credit, you have to establish, and by acquiring debt, that's how you build credit. So say you just have a, did you say auto loan? I think that's what you said. You might want to take a personal loan and pay it off, because normally, Bonnie, to really establish credit, because that's another question people ask me, how do you establish credit if you're just a freshman? Normally, they call it 3 credit lines. That is how you determine credit. 3 credit lines, and it could be any 3. It could be a student loan, it could be credit card, or it could be a personal loan. And that's how you start building credit. So it's kind of counterintuitive that you acquire more debt, but that's how you get more credit. But you got to pay it off. You have to pay it off and pay it on time. So in a way, Bonnie, you do have to acquire more debt, but you must pay it off on time. And that's how you actually build credit.
Yeah, and I would add something here too, which is we talked about the 3 C's, and one of those C's is capacity, right? And that's what banks are looking at is not only how much you owe and how much you make. They're looking at how much you owe against what your credit limits are as well. So sometimes people say to me, are the more credit cards I have, the better? And the answer is no, because with each credit card you get, that creates exposure for your lender, right? So if you've got 5 credit cards and they each have a $2,000 limit, you now have credit exposure of $10,000. That means that you could borrow up to $10,000. And so even if you're not using those credit cards, even if your balance is 0 and you've got that total exposure though of $10,000, a bank is going to take that into consideration when they're looking at lending to you. What's even more important to look at is what your balances are on the loans that you're taking out. And a credit card is really a loan, right? So you're going to be looking at trying to keep that below 30%. If you start having credit cards where you've got $800 that you owe and your limit is $1,000, that is going to impact your score in a negative way. So I wanted to be sure that the question asked, should I get more credit cards? And the answer on that is probably not, right? That's probably not the best way to boost your credit.
Right. I have a question in the question, Bonnie, and it asks, what do you suggest if your credit score is stuck between 730 and 750? Should I look for more credit cards? I only have a car payment, 2 store credit cards, and 1 credit. Yes.
That's the one we just answered. That's what I was asking you. Yes, same one.
Yes, yes. And by the way, 750 is a good, is actually 750 is still up there along the line of excellent.
Mhm.
So, but I know some people get caught up. I want 850. I want 800. But if you up in excellent in that range, you're good.
All right, we're gonna
make another statement, Bonnie, about keeping zero balance credit cards, because there was a question about that as far as close them out. But this is the issue about closing out credit cards. If you had like more than one, if you have a credit card that, let's say hypothetically, you've had for 10 years, and you got another credit card that you just applied for. If you get rid of the 10-year credit card, even though it's a zero balance, it can lower your score because there's credit history tied to that particular credit card. And that's why it's important, if it's an older credit card, that you do leave it open, because you're getting rid of credit history that they factor into your credit score. Now, this is the other little secret they don't tell you. If you keep a zero balance, they sometimes, if you don't use that credit card, it can affect your credit score. It's not many points. No one knows the secret box of what the actual points is, but they say that you must use that credit card every 6 months. And it doesn't matter what you purchase. It could just be a pack of gum. They don't look at what you purchased. They look at the activity that it was used. So that's another thing that you need to be concerned with if you're keeping a zero balance, you know, or don't be getting rid of those credit cards that you've had a long time, because that credit history is calculated in your score.
So there's another question here. We're going to take one more, and I'm going to add a little bit to it because I'm reading between the lines. The question is it a good idea to use your credit card to pay off other loans to boost your credit? And I think in between the lines here, there might be a misunderstanding that your loans are credit as well, right? Are being reported to the bureaus.
Right.
So again, the question is, should I use my credit card to pay off other loans to boost my credit?
Well, actually, no one knows the actual scoring, for a loan, particularly like say installment loan versus revolving credit loan. No one knows if it's an equal score, it's a different scoring. So by paying off, your loans with a credit card, I don't think that's helping you anymore, because I think it's all still considered credit or a loan. It's still considered credit. But I wouldn't pay off a loan. Now, let me there's a caveat. There's a caveat.
Yeah. Go
ahead, you go first.
I'm gonna say a couple things. So the first one is typically loans that are installment loans that have a defined start date and end date with payments in between have lower interest rates than a credit card would. And so from a bank perspective, a lender is going to look more favorably at an installment loan than at a credit card. And I think FICO kind of does the same. So I would say I would never use your credit card to pay off an installment loan. Right. And I would also suggest to you that, what you really want to do, if you've got debt, your focus should be on trying to pay down your highest interest rate debt first, and not really worry too much about your credit score. Like, I think we've created this almost from a marketing perspective, this a lot of concern around credit scores, when if you really look at your credit score, it is something that is a long-term representation of how you manage money. And the two greatest factors in that credit score is looking at, did you make your payments on time? And how much debt do you carry overall, not just on your credit card, but overall, how much debt you carry relative to how much income you have. And if you kind of keep those two things in mind, saying, I really need to make sure that I make payments on time for all of your obligations. And if you really make sure that you don't borrow more than you can afford to pay back, your credit score will come, right? You'll end up with a good credit score if you focus on those two things.
Hey, Bonnie, thanks for clarifying that too with the installment loan versus the credit card, because that's you 100% correct. They do look at the credit card less favorable than installment loan, which is normally a fixed term and a fixed amount. And so, yeah, thank you for making that clarification. No question. But yeah, so last question, because I know Dewey saying we had one more, but the question was, what is considered a good FICO score? Anything over 661 is considered good credit. And that's so anything over 661 is considered good credit.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Kinzer. You always bring great information and a lot of enthusiasm and energy. And I had a wonderful time listening to our student scholars, these student ambassadors from SFE and PD. I really encourage all of our audience members to connect with everybody, all of the speakers, stay in touch, and we're going to try and make sure we answer these questions before we get off the webinar as well. Dewey, back to you.
Bonnie, thanks a lot. And I want to echo everything that was shared, team, was a home run. I found myself taking some mental notes on a couple of different areas there. So things I can pass on to others. So thank you all so much. Scholars, I know a lot of you all have asked about playback. Yes, this is one of the great things about our partners at API Scholars. We're working with their wonderful YouTube platform to make playback available. So give us about a week and boom, you'll be able to access the playback. And please share this information. Tag our speakers, tag the individuals that put today's event together, and please share the information with others that weren't able to join us here for the discussions for today. Hey, as we wind things out over the next 3 minutes or less, you'll see on the next slide a quick link for our survey. I also just dropped this into the chat, so please take a minute, give us feedback. We're always looking to refine and build better ways to deliver this content. So give us feedback, tell us the things that you enjoyed, tell us the things that we can make tweaks and adjustments on in the days ahead. Our panelists are also dropping their LinkedIn information into the chat. Please get connected in with them, use that as a means of being able to continue the conversation, and be sure to invite all of our partners to come and share and present on your respective campuses and with your constituents. Our Money Matters, we talked about it a little bit earlier on. Great platform that's giving you wonderful resources as you're building strength for your financial journey and also helping to empower others. So get involved with us there at ourmoneymatters.com. You can learn lots more about this wonderful resource and find ways to get it implemented on your respective campuses and with your partners there. All right, we're coming down to the swan song here. We have now successfully completed 11 of our webinars for the year. So you'll see everything that we've covered here up through the early portion of May. And then on the next slide, you'll see the breakouts of what's left. We're down to the last one. We only got one more to go. But hey, what this means is you have access and playback to all of them. And I'll tell you, team, we actually had one of our webinars from last year that has over 14,000 playbacks. So please know that the links that are here can be shared, post them, share them, give them to folks in the sorority, give them to folks in the fraternity, give them to the folks that are on your sports teams or in the Drawbridge Club or in the gospel choir. Share it with anyone that may want to access the information. And be sure to join us again for our next session, which is going to be focused on mentors and sponsors. We've got our buddy Lynette Rutledge and also Liesl Sullivan coming to join us for those wonderful sessions here in just a couple of weeks. So the last two slides here will just give you some quick reminders for all of the folks that are looking for internships for next year, or for the individuals that are maybe graduating and focusing on full-time careers. Please visit the talent community. You're going to find tons of resources and tons of information out there that's going to help you along your journey. So please access the resources there and share that information with others. Immediately beneath that, hey, I know that we have some partners on that are in the military or are now retired from the military. Let's begin by thanking you all for your service. And also make sure that you're connecting in. We have a great partner in Sean Passmore, who does a lot of great work around our military recruitment within Wells Fargo. So you see Sean and his team's email address here. Please engage with them to learn more about the great resources and the recruiting platforms that are taking place for our wonderful veterans. Got to give a huge shout out to Richard and the team at TFS. They're the ones that are putting together these great emails and reminders for you all relative to our content. So please jump onto TFS, learn about the scholarships, learn about the resources that are available, whether you're a high schooler or whether you're looking for dollars to support you for a master's degree or for your doctorate. You can find those resources through TFS. So please get connected in there. And as we've mentioned before, don't forget about Beyond College. We still continue to have really, really great content to share. With that said, as we close out, I'm going to thank again our partners for the wonderful information that they shared. Make sure that you get connected to them via social media and join us again on November the 4th for our final webinar of the year with that discussion around mentors and sponsors, building your personal board of directors. I want to thank all of our partners for the wonderful information that they shared today. Get social with us, use the hashtags that are here, mention our wonderful speakers and presenters, maybe grab a thought or something that stuck out for you today. Throw that onto social media, mention our wonderful partners for the information that they shared, and give them that virtual high five, which we always appreciate. With that said, everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Fall is here. It was 40 degrees in Charlotte earlier this week. And so I hope that you're having a safe fall. For those that are home, maybe from fall break, put your feet up for a couple of days, and then let's get back to classes and let's continue to have a great fall semester. The Christmas and Thanksgiving season, the holiday season will be here before we know it. So stay safe out there. If there's anything that we can do, team, feel free to reach out to us. We look forward to seeing you all in November for the discussion around mentors and sponsors. Have a good one, y'all. We'll talk soon. Take care.